Saying goodbye to Iris, the boy is more determined than ever to see her again. With this in mind, he starts training harder than before. We see him continuing his practice sessions with Valis while the boy is busy training. Garoza appears. She tells him that the Dark King has commanded them to fight some creatures outside the country's capital. Valis suspects that this is just a ploy to keep the boy occupied. Soon after, Valis meets with the Dark King and reports that all the troops are ready to head towards the Light Kingdom. However, the boy remains oblivious to these plans. After leaving the capital, the boy encounters various evil beasts. He successfully fights them off with Garoza's help. Soon after, he watches as a ship from the Dark Kingdom sails towards the Light Kingdom. Suddenly, they are attacked by a flock of flying creatures. The boy manages to defend himself, but Garoza is caught off guard. She loses her balance and falls off a cliff. Seeing her in danger, the boy swiftly moves to save her. Unfortunately, both of them end up stuck on the cliff edge. To make matters worse, a terrifying demon appears on the scene. As danger looms, the boy, without any hesitation, lunges into a fierce battle against the fearsome beast. It's a daring move, but one that reflects his unwavering courage. Meanwhile, Iris, the Queen of Light, displays the same bravery as she stands ready to defend her kingdom against the impending invasion from the Dark King. Facing the formidable army of the Dark Kingdom, Iris decides to confront the adversary head-on. She's not standing alone though. She has the support of Shima and the magical warriors who are steadfastly ready to fight by her side. The NPC mages are about to get eliminated by the monsters from the Dark Kingdom, but Shima saves them in the nick of time. While this intense battle unfolds, General Fuse and Alantia, the Elf King, undertake a mission. They venture deep into a mysterious, foreboding cave. They reach a dead end, but Alantia reveals that there was more that met the eye. To further elaborate, Alantia pulls out one of his arrows and hands one to Fuse as well. Alantia then fires it at the roof of the cave. The rope on the arrow pulls Alantia upwards, revealing a secret passage that was above the supposed dead end. Fuse follows Alantia's lead, but accidentally steps on a loose rock. However, Alantia luckily pulls Fuse up inside the secret passage. As it was a dark passage, Alantia and Fuse kept their guard up. Alantia even pulled out a freaking magical magnifying glass out of all things that allowed him to see a hidden passageway nearby. Alantia then reveals a stock of makeshift bombs that he had brought along. The bombs stored some of the power of the rune. Both Fuse and Alantia then blast the rock in front of them, revealing a crystallized area. Alantia then used his staff along with his knowledge of magic to create a pattern that opened up a path. They finally find the radiant drops that they were after. The drops were a healing remedy for the queen. Fuse rushes to grab the droplets, but Alantia stops and warns him about the soul that was too powerful to contain without proper precautions. Alantia throws a pebble from nearby into the water. The pebble immediately explodes, proving his point from earlier. However, as Iris was growing weaker by the second, Fuse believed that there was no time to devise a plan. He recklessly enters the water and grabs the droplets. Alantia is amazed by Fuse, who rushed in despite the risks that were present. With this valuable medicine in hand, they begin their return journey to the kingdom's capital. Back on the battlefield, Iris continues her resilient struggle against the Dark Kingdom's soldiers. Despite her remarkable skill and strength, the sheer number of enemies is overwhelming. One by one, she defeats the invaders, but their numbers keep increasing, pushing her to her limits. Exhaustion sets in, but before succumbing to fatigue, Iris makes a final protective move. Along with the help of Shima and some other mages, Iris conjures a magical barrier that envelops and safeguards the city. However, the exertion takes a toll, and she collapses to the ground, drained of her energy. Meanwhile, in the Dark Realm, the young boy continues his own struggle against the Horned Beast. Garoza tries to keep a safe distance while attacking, whereas the young boy rushes in headfirst to battle the beast. The fight is intense, but the young boy's incredible skill enables him to conquer his adversary. He swings his charged blade at the beast, creating pointed ruptures in the ground that impale the beast, hence revealing the young boy as the victor. He thanks Garoza for her help in defeating the beast. But let's be real, the MVP of the battle was the young boy. Following their triumphant battle, Garoza, in a mood of celebration, proposes a victory dinner. The young boy agrees to her invitation. As they sit down for their meal amidst the calm of the evening, the boy reflects on the promise he made to the Queen of Light. He declares that this promise is his utmost priority, even if it meant that he was imagining an unfulfillable dream. Garoza approaches the boy while prompting the boy to share his visions for the future. Moreover, Garoza confesses her romantic feelings to the boy. However, Garoza is able to read the emotions on the boy's face, suggesting that he only had feelings for Queen Iris. Saddened, Garoza bashfully runs away while crying. Despite her heartbreak, Garoza desires to help the boy in his journey to the throne. Meanwhile, back at the Light Kingdom, Fuse returns to Iris with the medicine in hand. Using her magic, Shima showers the healing drops on Iris. The medicine seems like a success in healing Iris. Shima then heads out to catch Fuse up to speed about the current situation. Shima informs Fuse that the shield that the mages had erected would not last for long. Fuse then decides to prepare the knights with the limited time they had in hand. Confused about the whole situation, Iris heads to the progenitor rune to clear up her mind. The promise that the young boy made with her reoccurs to her, and she smiles, hoping for the best in the future. Fuse interrupts Iris's praying session to inform her about the preparations that were being made. Back in the Dark Kingdom, the boy notices a force of darkness being prepared in the sky. The young boy heads out to inspect, only to be surrounded by civilians that are surprised that the Dark Prince and Garoza were left out from the war efforts. The boy learns that the king was set on defeating the White this time. However, he is then suddenly approached by soldiers that request his company, to which he agrees to tag along. Nearby, Garoza catches sight of the young boy as he is being escorted by soldiers. Back at the Light Kingdom, Theo, Fuse, and Shima place their trust in Iris as their whole kingdom is approaching an all-out war. At the same time, Iris begins to imagine the promise the boy made previously, if not for the millionth time. She heads onto the battleground and asks the progenitor rune to divide its power amongst everyone in the Light Kingdom. The war starts as the mages and knights of light kill some of the enemy forces. Suddenly, the King of Darkness emerges from the sky, so Iris immediately rushes to subdue him. It begins to dawn on Shima that the sheer number of enemies would be impossible to defeat. One of the soldiers of light is possessed by the dark, and he suddenly begins to pose a threat to civilians. A nearby knight takes down the possessed knight from causing harm. Outside, Theo is nearly attacked by an enemy from Dark. Theo is angered and he uses magic to take down the enemy. Meanwhile, the knights are finding it tough to kill the possessed light civilians. Shima and her student mages erect a barrier that keeps the enemies at bay. Fuse begins to get exhausted, but the sheer thought of His Majesty Iris fuels him up. Fuse finds himself facing Valis from the Dark Kingdom. Valis and Fuse introduce themselves as being close guards to their respective king and queen. They both engage in battle while Queen Iris and the King of Darkness fought against each other as well. The king reveals his plans to become the one and only ruler between both the kingdoms. The two point their swords against one another as they release their powers of light and dark respectively. At the same time, the barrier erected by Shima and the mages wears down because of the forces of darkness. As some of the knights and mages get possessed by the darkness, Shima uses her magic to return the people back into their original selves. However, she is unable to properly dispel the possession placed on them, forcing her to ask the progenitor rune for help. Nearby, Fuse and Valis engage in a heated battle, which is brought to life in a literal sense as Valis ignites the surroundings with dark flames. Valis begins to get the upper hand, and he uses the opportunity to lecture Fuse about how weak he was. Likewise, the King of Darkness proves to be stronger than Iris, causing Iris to lose in a physical confrontation. Iris swoops to the ground below after the king strikes her with an attack. Growing desperate, Shima tries to invoke her spells, but it was of no use as her power had already been used. She begins to beg the progenitor rune for power, but it does not respond. Regardless, Shima refuses to back down. Iris, who had landed near Shima, motivates her sister to not give up. Moreover, she reveals that there was still a way to shift the current tide of the battles in their favor. Iris gathers the mages and begins to use the Gear of Fate, which was one of the 7 powers. However, despite their efforts, nothing seemingly changes. Hope runs thin as the King of Dark approaches Shima and Iris. Shima instructs Iris to head to the progenitor rune. Iris rushes away from the scene while Shima decides to fight against the king. The king is immediately able to gain the upper hand of the situation as he overpowers Shima with darkness. Back at the Dark Kingdom, the boy is led to Adele by the soldiers of Dark. The boy is surprised to see Adele alive despite killing him earlier. Adele points out that he was a potential candidate to the throne and would not easily go out without a fight. The boy asks him the reason for his attempt of assassination on the queen. Adele reveals that the killing of Iris was the king's will. However, Adele believes that everything worked out for the better in the end as the Dark Kingdom successfully attacked the Light Kingdom. Adele informs the boy about the king, revealing that he strived to be the only one in power. According to Adele, weaklings like the boy could not fathom the ideology of the strong. The boy does not stand for any more nonsense, and he decides to brandish his sword against Adele. Adele reveals that he was engulfed in darkness from head to toe, and hence he uses the darkness to assume a monstrous form. The boy rushes to strike down Adele, but realizes that it would not be as easy as he had assumed. Adele sends a purple beam towards the young boy, however he successfully blocks it. Adele dashes to strike, but the young boy blocks his attack, causing Adele to be pushed away. The boy and Adele begin to go back and forth against each other. The boy charges his sword with power and swings it towards Adele, causing the ground below to rupture into spikes. However, the battle was far from over as Adele revealed himself to be unharmed from the attack. Adele claws away at the boy's armor, causing the armor to break. Adele manages to land a strike on the young boy and eventually slams his sword away. Adele then impales him with a sword, and the young boy groans in pain. However, as he was bound by Adele's sword, he uses this as an opportunity to strike his own sword on Adele. Adele then reveals that he was just a distraction that was keeping the young boy at bay. With the time that he had bought, the Dark Kingdom was seemingly winning the war against the Light Kingdom. Adele further reveals that the king actually plans on absorbing the progenitor rune, which would cause darkness to spread everywhere, and consequently the balance will collapse. People in both of the kingdoms would die as a result. The boy realizes that the king posed a huge threat as he was aiming for total annihilation of each and everything. Adele suddenly vanishes into darkness after being struck by him. The young boy realizes that he has to take action fast as time is already not in his favor. The boy decides to head to the Light Kingdom but is slowed down by a horde of dark forces. To deal with the forces blocking his path, Goroza lends a hand in the fighting. The boy begins to look for a way to reach the Light Kingdom because of the huge distance. When hope was running thin, a power suddenly engulfed the young boy, revealing a new set of wings on his back. The boy takes flight to salvage the conditions in the Kingdom of Light. Meanwhile, back at the Light Kingdom, the king begins to toy with Shima by causing her to gain negative emotions. Shima begins to have an inferiority complex as Iris had become queen instead of her. However, Shima breaks free of the corruption and she then orders the mages nearby to assist in fighting off the monsters. In the meantime, Iris prays to the progenitor rune while expressing her failure in protecting the Light Kingdom and in maintaining the balance between the light and dark. Despite having previously promised to wait for the young boy, Queen Iris breaks into tears as she is forced to use the only possible way available. The queen decides to initiate the rumbling. The boy, who had now reached the Kingdom of Light, tried to hurry towards Queen Iris as he was fearing the worst. Queen Iris decides to sacrifice herself by causing the progenitor rune to destroy the kingdom in order to defeat the King of Darkness that was causing havoc. As the Kingdom of Light was being destroyed, Fuse realized that Iris had decided to sacrifice herself. Unable to accept the events that were unfolding before him, Fuse goes into a spiral of depression. Goroza is able to see the destruction of the Light Kingdom from the Dark Kingdom. Moreover, Theo tries to run away from the scene in hopes of seeking refuge in someplace safe. As the boy reaches the scene, Queen Iris begins to tear up because of their unfulfilled promise. The king realizes that Iris had decided to attack him with the Light Kingdom as well as the progenitor rune. The boy then rushes to the king with his sword, and he pierces the king's chest, fulfilling at least some parts of Iris's wish. However, Fuse is unable to accept Iris's death, and he begins to get mad that she made such a decision. And this brings the anime to an end. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss out on any more of my recaps. Until next time, take care.